When it's time to actually install reporting services, you need to be aware of the system requirements. And if you take any of the Microsoft certification exams, you may be asked some of this information. So let's step through this. First of all, reporting services will run just fine on either a 32 or 64-bit operating system. Now again, this is going to be also where SQL Server 2008 is running. Okay, so basically you're going to base this off of your version of SQL Server 2008. So you can run this on a 32 or 64-bit system. Now you can run this on XP Professional. You can also run it on Vista, the Business Edition of Vista, the Ultimate Edition, or the Enterprise Edition. Now let me stop right here. Normally you're going to run these on Professional and Vista, which really are the desktop client versions in the Microsoft family. You're going to use these for development and for testing and those sorts of things. Now generally in a production environment you're going to install this on a server product, and you can either put it on Windows Server 2003 with Service Pack 2, doesn't matter what version after that, Standard, Enterprise, Data Center, and so forth. And you can also install it on all versions of Windows Server 2008. Now, that's pretty much it. Really, the bottom line is for most of the operating systems out there, other than XP Home and maybe a couple of versions of Vista, you can install this without a lot of problem. Now, the issue becomes, or the things you want to watch, like always, are memory. Now, Microsoft will tell you that this will run with a minimum of 512 megabytes of memory. Now, obviously, that's not enough memory really to run the operating system, and you don't, in a real-world environment, want to try to carry out reporting services in that environment, but it will work there if you're limited to that. So 512 megabytes is the minimum. Microsoft recommends at least 2 gigabytes on the server, where on the reporting server or where reporting services is running. So 2 gigs is the recommended, and like everything else in America, more is better. So if you can get 4 gigs, that's better, 6 is better than 4, and so forth. But you're going to see that the more memory you have on your reporting services server, you're going to like what you see as far as how quickly the reports are generated and so forth. Now, disk space, when we get ready to install reporting services, you're going to first of all need about 2 gigabytes free for temporary installation files. One of the things you're going to see when we look at installing reporting services, there's a lot of stuff that goes on when installation happens, and you'll watch a lot of things click and hum and think and so forth. One of the things it does is writes a bunch of temporary installation files onto your disk. It will delete them later, but you have to have that much free space. Now, once it is installed, there's always going to be at least 120 megabytes that have been used to hold the reporting services components or the report server components. Now, depending on what else you have installed with SQL Server 2008, just be aware that you could be up to another 1.6 gigabytes. So the bottom line is, go ahead and just make sure you have 2 gigabytes of free space. Now, real world, if I only have 2 gigabytes of free space on my server, I've got some other issues I've got to deal with. But for the purposes of testing, make sure you know these numbers. Now, we will talk about SharePoint integrated installations a bit in other videos, but for now, just understand that if you're going to use reporting services to report on SharePoint information, you're going to have to install reporting services in a SharePoint integrated setting or environment. And with that, you will have to be running SQL Server 2008 Developer, Standard, or Enterprise editions. Now, along with those editions of SQL Server 2008, you will also have to have installed on the report server an instance of SharePoint Services 3.0 or Office SharePoint Server 2007. Now, it really doesn't matter in which order you put these on. Generally, most people will put on SharePoint Services or Office SharePoint Server 2007, and I know that whole SharePoint world can get a little confusing about the different versions. Go read about that, not part of this course. But You need that out there, and then install your reporting services, and you should be good to go for SharePoint integrated installation. So that's just a real quick overview of the system requirements. No big surprises here. This thing's not really a resource hog. It's not like this drastic new memory requirements or disk space requirements. Pretty much standard stuff. So there's your system requirements for installing reporting services.